Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show, where we bring you badasses from all over the globe. And today I am super excited to give you all an announcement. I have to say this first of all, I am a new grandma. My daughter, my first grandchild, my first granddaughter, my only granddaughter, my first grandchild was born at 10:55 a.m. yesterday. We spent 3 days in the hospital. They're still in the hospital. It's been quite a week. So keep us in your prayers. Her name is Alaya, which means in Basque language, which is the area between France and Spain, that it's kind of its own region. It means joyous and happy. So I appreciate your prayers to continue, and I'm so thrilled, you can see it, to be a grandma. I'm not going to be calling myself grandma, though. So just so you know, I'll let you know later what the name will be. And everybody, today I have the special good fortune to have here one of my coaches who I have worked with for 4 years now. I think it's the fourth year, right, Marisa?
I do not know exactly how many years.
I think it's the fourth year. And I have really benefited so much from her programs. She's the creator of Live Your Message Live, which is an incredible 3-day event that you should absolutely attend. She also is the creator of a number of incredible software opportunities that you can use. And I am in her training right now to experienceify businesses. She's one of the top experts in experience products in the entire world. And she is just super sharp, super amazing, and has a heart of gold. So let's welcome to the show, Marisa.
Hi. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And the crowd goes wild. Woo! Everybody go wild from wherever you are, walking the dog or whatever you're doing. But listen in, because today we're going to have some fun. And we're talking about the X Factor Edge, why the hottest new revenue stream in 2025 is not AI. I want to ask you, Marisa, first of all, though, as we start, when did you really know? Because you have such an interesting background as a documentary filmmaker, all the things that you've done as an artist. When did you know that you were really going to be working in the realm of helping people create amazing, profitable businesses that serve the world?
It's a hard question. Being in business is really an evolution. And I just started following the wisps and following the clues. And I didn't know exactly what that would look like. So when I first went into business, I thought, well, what do I know how to do? And I know how to make things look good and sound good and tell good stories. And I just started working with business owners, and it evolved from there.
And you're so good. One thing I really appreciate about you is you're so good at walking through people every single step of the way. You know, you're right brain and left brained, which is a real gift. I mean, there are very few of us like that. And you are definitely right brained and left brained, so you can work with all sorts of people. So is there a moment in your personal history, a personal story that you want to give us that would inspire people before we get into the X Factor?
Just a personal story about anything?
Or about your business and how you got started,
Yeah.
How you got on this Experienceify journey.
Okay, thank you. Well, yes, I would say that in one of my last jobs, I remember going into work and it was just a normal Wednesday, like any other Wednesday. And I was there editing a film on my laptop because I was actually a filmmaker and working for a production company. And I remember my boss comes charging in and asks me for my power cable because she had forgotten hers at home. And of course, she shows up at noon, dressed to the nines and full high-end couture. And I'd been there for hours working away, but I didn't have my laptop plugged in. So I didn't have a whole lot of charge. And when you're running, Final Cut Pro and all these really heavy apps, you need to keep it plugged in. And I said, hey, could you ask somebody else? Because I need it right now. We're on deadline here to finish this edit. And she kind of just flipped. And she said, well, that computer you're working on, I own that computer, and that power cord, I own that too. So give me the power. And I remember not really having much of a choice, but it escalated. And I ended up giving her the power cord, but I realized at that particular moment that I'd been doing what so many people do. I'd been going into a job, and I love the work, though I didn't always love the job, and wasn't necessarily appreciated for my contributions. And I wasn't earning the money that I wanted to earn. I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to have. And that was the moment when I started to realize, well, maybe I'm not meant to work for someone else. Maybe I'm meant to create my own thing.
I love that story. That is so powerful. And ouch, would you give me the power? She didn't say, would you? She said, give me the power.
You did.
Give me the
Yeah.
power. What a perfect turn of phrase for somebody who's obviously, she's the one benefiting from all your incredible work. So I'm so thrilled and so happy, as so many of us who have you as their coach, that you said to her, fuck you in your head. Okay, maybe you didn't say it like that, Marisa. You're very, very kind. But you said, I think I need to be in business for myself. And that you went ahead and you have been a trailblazer. And tell everybody how long you've been doing this work now, helping people create their businesses, because it's well over a decade now, correct? Maybe even.
Yeah, I got started in 2011. So I'm really in my 14th year. And over that time, I brought in over $51 million and helped over 18,000 people launch successful businesses.
You have, and you're incredible. And the way that you document, did everybody just hear? I hope you heard how very specific she was in sharing what she's created. 51 million, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And she's helped over 18,000 people. So there's a little.
That's people who paid me money. I've helped a lot more than that.
Money. I love that. Yeah, I love that, Marisa. I actually had a client who was celebrating something today, but there wasn't any income. And I said, well, we really can't call that your first coaching session yet. It was a sales enrollment conversation, but you're going to have your first coaching session. That's happening. That's coming. And you're going to get paid. And I'm going to make sure you do. So anyway, Marisa, so I know we have something exciting coming up in Austin, which has to do with the X Factor Edge. But first of all, and by the way, those of you listening, some of you may be interested in some sponsorship opportunities. If there are still any left, Marisa will let us know. But before we get into that, Marisa, tell everybody, what is the X Factor Edge and why is this so very critical that people know this right now, where we are in 2025, with what's going on in our world, our economy, and the trends that are happening in business?
Yeah, 100%. So what I'm seeing is that, AI is an incredible invention on the scale of electricity in terms of how it's redefining our lives and what it's allowing us to do. And one of the things, though, it can do is it can replicate someone's entire business model with a few clicks. And so the question becomes, what differentiates you that goes beyond what you actually sell, right? So if you can kind of go to AI and you can get the answers, or you can replicate your business model, why would people continue to go to you? A lot of times it's the customer experience. It's the results that you help them get, not just the process of what it is that you're delivering. And a lot of those relate to the experience that you design for people. So the X Factor Edge is really the thing that sets you apart, that the experience that you create for the people, how you make them feel, the results you help them get in a way that's different from anybody else. And so I've been pioneering the field of experience design for over a decade. And how do you create engaging and sticky experiences that have people lean in, take actions they wouldn't normally take, and get results they wouldn't normally get? And this is something that you can apply to coaching, you can apply it to consulting, you can apply it to live events, you can apply it to software, you can apply it to an online virtual experience, you can apply it to an online course or program. So how do you really understand the customer journey, all the touch points along the way, and get people super engaged and moving forward? So that's what the X Factor Edge is all about. And it's super important because this is the thing that's going to have you coming back 4 years in a row to my momentum coaching program. And so I would ask you, what's the reason that you've come back year after year? Because we're talking about a year-long, group coaching program that's the most significant investment of what we have to offer, and you keep coming back.
Yes, because first of all, we know as coaches that we all need coaches. That's number one. We all need coaches. If you're a coach, you should have coaches. And if you have a coach who doesn't have excellent coaches, then run and get a different one. That's the first reason, just in general. But Marisa, one of the reasons I come back is because you've so laid out in 3 different levels what people need to do at the exact point they need to do it in their business. And I really value this. And it's also something that I have absorbed, and it's something that I teach to my clients, because it doesn't help if I am starting in business and I'm trying to do I'm doing a podcast. This is a long-term thing, right? I've been in business how many years? It's too many, 24 years, 24 and a half. Wait, 24, 25 now, almost 25 in September. But the deal is that if I'm doing a podcast at the beginning of my business thinking it's going to bring me business, that's absolutely ludicrous. And the way that you've set up things, I know, and everyone who works with you knows exactly what to do at which point they are in their business. And they know what are the strategies that are going to be more short-term, what is going to be long-term. And we also have the support that we need with a community of lively, engaged people. So those are just some of the reasons I keep coming back. And I also know you're the real deal. You've heard me say that before, but in the chats at our events, but you're the real deal because you don't sugarcoat what it's like to be in business. And that's the whole reason I started this show, because I heard a lot of people saying things that were really unrealistic and promising things that are really unrealistic. And it really bothered me that folks were being bamboozled out of a lot of money. And I've heard you talk about that too. Totally. So those are some of the reasons, and those of us who really do provide results. And one other thing I would say, one last thing, and this is really an interview for you, but thank you for asking me a question. I love it.
It's relevant.
It is relevant.
Someone keep coming back.
It's absolutely relevant. We're here to have a conversation. But you know me, I can get talking and keep talking. So I know that about myself. And I can talk too much. I've been told that. So by people. We won't name them though. So Marisa, one thing I wonder is your success rate with people. Usually the online average is about 3% in online success rate. So what is your success rate? Because I believe it's over 40%. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the one that we've been able to track most precisely, just because we've added all the gamification and the feedback loops, is our Experience Product Masterclass program. We do one annual cohort every single year. It's where most people start their journey with us in October. And there's usually about 1,000 people who go through that cohort. And last year, it was over, basically, it took me years to optimize to get over 50% of the students to complete that program. Or complete or launch or, profit or whatever else they happen to be. And now I believe it's close to like 59%, or it went really high. It's definitely over 50%. But I can't remember the exact number because it changes every year, and every year we improve that number.
That's amazing. I'm putting this up in the chat. Over 50% completed, and now 59% for the Experience Product Masterclass. And by the way, that's what I signed up for when I first came into your world with Live Your Message. I signed up for Experience Product Masterclass, or maybe I signed up for Experience Product Masterclass and then came to Live Your Message. But that's how I started with you before I came into Momentum. So a quick little tip that is implicit there for everybody is make sure you have different points at which people can enter your business. Have some high level ones and have some that are high level, but not as high level, so that they can come in there if they need to. And they can test out, so to speak, what you have to offer. And Marisa, I know you're going to be starting, I don't know if I can share this, the little trial of Momentum.
What do you mean a little trial of
Momentum? A little trial. You said you're going to have some little thing where people can try for 3 months and then they can enroll. You're working on that?
Yeah, it's not something that we should be talking about yet.
We should not talk about that now.
It's not a trial. It's a little bit of different.
Okay, so just know, you all, those of you listening, think about a way to let people come into your world at different points with different amounts of time and investment that they make. And then you can discern who will be the right teachers and coaches and supporters for you. So back to the X Factor Edge. So that X Factor of getting people involved, giving them reasons to keep going, gamifying it, giving them rewards, getting them excited, providing all the things that they need, basically, to the wins they need to keep going. What would you say to those folks listening who are thinking, wow, how can I do this in my business? What's a starting point for them to actually look at their customer journey and begin to use these?
Yeah, well, the first thing is, what does mission accomplished or success look like? And I think a lot of people don't have a clear answer for that question. And they're thinking about, well, I'm going to give them this, I'm going to give them this, I'm going to do that with them, I'm going to do that with them. But how do they know when they finished? How do they know when they've actually won, right?
Mhm.
And so the very first step would be to define a clear and specific win state. And
Mhm.
it's so clear and specific that you could photograph someone crossing the finish line. And if you have that, then you know what you're working towards. And so it's a lot easier to get people there. But if you're not clear and specific and it's more, let's just say wishy-washy, it's very
Mhm.
hard to kind of add all of those milestones and all of those triggers because you're not sure where you're leading them to.
Right. It's like the difference between saying, okay, I'm going to help you have a successful business, and saying, I'm going to help you have a 7-figure business in which you only work 10 hours a week, 45 weeks a year. I love that. And by the way, one of the things I value about you too, that I didn't mention before, is your clarity, because clarity is power. And when we're clear and we have clear touchstones and clear goalposts, we can actually reach them. Otherwise, we're basically blindfolded and shooting in the dark. So it's something I value about you. So first, they define a clear and specific win state. And then what might they do for two other simple
Yeah.
steps?
Well,
Start
then you can
simple.
look at what are the key milestones on the path to get there, right?
Mhm.
Because you don't want people to have to wait to feel like they're winning until the very end. And then you can look at how to sequence whatever it is that you're working on. And the sequencing I recommend to do motivationally rather than linearly or logically. So a lot of people make the first step the first step. The first step, though, might be hard. It might be boring. It might be, trigger a lot of resistance. So understand how to look at the onboarding or the first 24 hours, the first week, the first, 30 days after someone buys, and then map out what are they going to do there. So it feels like they're gaining momentum and making progress right away. And it's so clear, it's so specific, and it's so accessible that everyone's going to win.
I love this. All right. I've tried to capture that in the chat right there. Let's see, there it goes. And I think this is fabulous. Really look at that onboarding process, determine how you can help them motivationally win, not necessarily in a linear way. I really appreciate that. So that they know that they're making progress and they want to keep going. Actually, I just brainstormed. I can't talk today. Lack of sleep. I brainstormed a process with my coach, one of my coaches, Coach Mel, that would allow us to focus on the wins people are having every single month in my Make It Happen Mastermind. And we created what is called 10 wins. 10 wins. And they're adding to this every Monday as they're also marking their completed percentages of their declarations, what they are creating during that particular month. And it's such a really uplifting, exciting thing when people get to read their 10 wins and the group is cheering and just saying, yes, yes, look at all you've done. Because as entrepreneurs, would you say that we pretty much very quickly move on to the next project? We finish a project and we're like, what's next? And we forget to be excited and to reward ourselves for what we just created.
Yeah, definitely. I think that as entrepreneurs, we tend to be always looking at the next goal, the next milestone. So we're looking at the gap between where we are and where we want to go versus looking at how far we've come from where we started.
All right. I got to time out. Say that again. That was pure genius. I'm going to put this into the chat.
Well, this is actually something that Dan Sullivan
Mm-hmm.
is one of his concepts that was in the book, The Gap in the Game by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So it's really this idea of how to reframe the game that you're playing. So most people are looking at the gap between where they are and where they want to go. But if instead you focus on the game between, where you are and where you've come from, then you can be happy with where you are versus constantly changing the mileposts. As you get closer to it, we push it farther and farther. And so we're always in the gap. We're never feeling satisfied, no matter what we're doing and how far we've come. So getting into the practice of focusing on the gain rather than the gap, so we can see the progress that we are making and celebrate that progress versus constantly rigging the game so we're losing, right? Which is what most people do. Because even if you get to your goal, like, well, what's the next goal? Or now this goal is not enough. I need to get to the next one and the next one and the next one, and you never arrive.
What you just said, I think is very profound, because that's a scarcity conversation that a lot of people have in business. I'm not enough. What I've done is not enough. It's never enough. Oh my God. I could create a 10-figure business and it wouldn't be enough because there's something else I could create. So I think this is very powerful, what you're saying, that we want to look at how far we've come rather than the gap from where we are and where we want to go. Because when we look at the gap from where we are right now and where we want to go, usually we'll get a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response kicking in and we'll stop, right? Or we'll at least pause. Some of us pause for years and years and pause until we go to the grave and don't do it. But hopefully everyone listening, you're hearing what's being laid down here. And that is that we want to focus on our wins every day, every week, every month, every bit of it, and not just on the gap that we see that may look like a Grand Canyon at sometimes.
Yeah. And that's I call that the technique of constant wins. So people feel like they're constantly making progress. They're constantly winning. And then, of course, escalating wins. So when people feel like they're winning, they're going to want to keep winning. And if you can get people going and starting that momentum through small wins, then you can escalate them into larger actions, larger wins. But if you drop people in the deep end of the pool first, they just go into anxiety or overwhelm.
Oh, that's speaking to me, because I do have a tendency to drop people into the deep end of the pool sometimes. And I'm very aware of that. And it's something I'm working on, is really being a better hand holder. Because sometimes we do need our hands held. We do need a little bit more guidance, especially at the beginning. So I just put in there the technique of constant wins. Stack those wins so they can escalate. That's one of those Tony Robbins concepts, the stacking of the wins, because most people stack their losses and sabotage themselves. But not in our group, right?
All right. Yes.
So I love this, Marisa. And, you've done some incredible work experiencifying and adding that X Factor edge to some really big companies. And I don't know which ones you can speak about or not, but could you give us some ideas of how you've taken in the process of creating the X Factor edge into big companies and some of the results you've had, even without the names, if needed?
Yeah, well, I mean, my core area of expertise and focus has been in the online education world, the online course market. So a lot of people who are creating the kind of biggest, most popular online courses in the market have come to learn my methodology and apply it to their work. And so they can go from 10xing the number of people engaging with the courses or crossing the finish line. That also increases the number of testimonials and referrals and back-end sales and happy customers that they get, and stops refunds and dissatisfaction as well. Yeah.
I love it. Yes. And yet I admire about you that you have a specific part of your business that actually, so specific group that deals with refunds, because I think we all need that, because it does happen upon occasion. It does. And you've handled that as well,
What do you mean by a specific group? Just that there's someone on my team who focuses on a customer support? Yeah.
Yes. I sure wish I had that. I don't have that yet, Marisa. And it would be so great, because refunds can be so demoralizing. Even though you've helped so many people, then this person comes along and they're, anyway.
When you're helping people at scale, we're talking about thousands of people a year. There are going to be people who, no matter how good you are, and no matter how much you set them for success and how much value you're giving, will get triggered also in a transformational container, or have something happen and then just get like off to the races or whatever else it happens to be. And and people who aren't always taking responsibility for their own feelings and what's going on for them too. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And at scale, you're going to have that. That's going to be a portion of that. And even not at scale, you're going to have it in business, And I just think it's so important, in the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz says one of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personally. And yet at the same time, we need to ask, well, how did I help create that and deal with it? So what would you say also? Well, can you give us an idea, let's say, of some of the results, specific results of some of the companies you've worked with recently? Just give folks an idea of like how their ROI increased or their employee retention, et cetera.
Increasing sales 30%, 10xing the number of people getting results in their programs, getting, radically more case studies and,
Mhm.
having, like I said, slashing refunds by 80%, that sort of thing.
Beautiful. Yes. Huge. And again, notice that she's quantified all of that, you all. Quantification, the clarity of quantifying, of measuring, tracking, quantifying, so that you know what needs work. And that's something I do appreciate about you, is it's kind of a gap analysis always. I feel like when I go to our accelerators, I always realize a gap I have. I realize what I'm doing well, but I also realize what I'm not doing well. And that's just as instructive. So, well, what would you say to those new business owners? Because we have some new and aspiring business owners who listen in. We even have some people who aren't business owners, but they listen in because they like the content. So, what would you say that to those aspiring business owners, what would you say is a snafu that you had that you have worked very hard with your work to help other people not have? What are some of the issues that you've had with your work that you said, I'm going to work on this so I can help someone else prevent this happening, because it was really not fun at the time in my business or life?
Well, I think a lot of it is using the right strategy at the right time. So,
Mhm.
so many of the online business mentors and marketing coaches are teaching these massive strategies of scales like automated funnels and all of this stuff. And if you aren't clear on your value proposition, you don't necessarily need to go buy Keep and build a funnel and do all of this stuff yet, versus doing the right things at the right time and kind of starting small and then really proving what you do and then taking the next step to broaden out your reach and grow your audience and the next and the next. So a lot of people, I think, start with the vision of the end and then try to do like, I'm just beginning, I'm launching this huge podcast, but they don't have anything to sell yet, right? And then they could
Right.
be talking about things that aren't relevant to what they ultimately want to sell. So doing the right things at the right time to be strategic and to make things easier and building the core foundation of your business. It's not particularly sexy, but so many people try to skip steps or sell you on the one thing that you can't use unless you've got this foundation in place and this foundation built. So help people building a rock solid foundation, but also aligning their business to them, to their skills, to their talents, to what you want to give and receive through your business. Because I think a lot of people end up building businesses that are misaligned with who they are and what they want and their skill sets. So they feel like they have to work really hard and stress themselves out and burn themselves out in order to continue. And I think permission to build the right size, right fit business for you. And so often people are talking about one size fits all success strategies, which does not account for, well, is this actually right for you? Are you going to be able to win with this particular business model or this business strategy? How do we support you in finding what I call that path of least resistance and greatest reward? And so that's the other area, is really right thing at the right time, based on your current, size and scale of business and where you want to go, but also right things for you based on your gifts, your talents, how you're going to naturally succeed and win.
Yes, and you have people do different assessments when we come into the program, which is very useful to understand how we work, how we think, how we organize our thoughts, how we function in life, our lifestyle, and so forth. Because if we have a business that's super successful, but we don't have time to enjoy your life, like I'm going to enjoy my grandbaby. I have very, very consciously limited the number of people in my Make It Happen mastermind right now. Because why? Because I want to spend time with my first grandbaby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to miss that.
Congratulations on the grandbaby. And
I know, right? I'm getting tears right now because it was so emotional. We had such an emotional 3 days. And it just reminds me,
Yeah.
I kind of became a mother by surprise, Marisa.
Mhm.
You don't know this about me, but
Right.
I was going to adopt a special needs child who was older. And then I found out I was pregnant. And I have to tell you, with all the PhDs and all the certifications and everything I've done, the greatest thing I feel like I've ever done is being a mom, and being a mom who hopefully models what it is to go for the thing that you most love and build the business you love and have the friends around you and people you love, and to say no when you need to say no. So I'm very grateful and I'm very aware. And what I appreciate about your approach is that depending on what is important to you, whoever you're working with, that you're going to honor that and support them in finding the path that is rewarding to them, but doesn't require burnout and frustration, stress, disease, etc. So it's a
Yeah.
powerful thing.
I think it's building a business for the sake of having an amazing life,
Yeah.
and something that
Oh,
can get lost in the hustle culture. And maybe it takes you a little bit longer, or you don't grow as big as is humanly possible, but is that what you really want? And I think asking those questions first. And it's, what are you willing to give up? It's not just what do you want, but what are you willing to give in order to get there, in balancing these two things. You might want that 8-figure business, but do you want to manage a team of 20 to have that 8-figure business? Or do you want to use all this internet marketing? Do you want to be spending, 100 grand a month on cold traffic? Do you want to be doing all the things it takes to kind of create that? Yes or no? Because you have to be willing to do the things it takes to get that particular outcome in that particular model. And I think many people just by default think, okay, well, more is better, but what is just right look like for you? And I think that's a little bit of a more mature conversation, especially in a culture, the US, which is more, better, faster, younger, cheaper, right? And then that's what we've been kind of trained our entire lives is right for us. And I'm all for ambition. I'm an ambitious woman. I have brought in over $50 million in sales. And as I get more towards midlife, starting to say, well, that's not all there is for life. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? And what's going to actually make you happy.
What's calling you? Think about that, everybody. What's calling your heart, your soul, your mind right now? Where do you feel called? And, you have an exercise. I've forgotten the name of it right now. It's gone out of my head, but the exercise where we sit and we think about the future and what is our perfect future.
There's more than one. So
The perfect day, not that one. It's a different one. It's the one we do where we visualize and then we go
the
through
land of plenty.
The land of plenty. Thank you very much.
And that actually is the one that
so
that's the one that I bring Michelle in to teach. So one of my kind of collaboration partners, it's actually an exercise she learned from her mentor. So that one has been passed on a few times.
That's beautiful. And it's lovely that we can be mentored by people we never even really worked with directly, because guess what? We're mentored by people who are mentored by people who are mentored by people, many of whom have passed even. It's a wonderful thing. We're being mentored all the time by such a conglomerate of people. Well, in the land of plenty, would you tell everybody, just give them a little, like a quick synopsis, because I think that is such a powerful exercise. And the folks listening to this now and in the future, you all can get a pen and paper and have a glass of bubbly or have a glass of tea, cup of tea, and talk and do this for yourself. And
well, it's really specific. I'll say that. Like, it's a very specific,
it's a whole
20-minute guided visualization that leads to very specific light bulb moments. But essentially what it is, so I'm not saying go drink a glass of wine and whatever comes to you. It's not exactly.
You're going to only have the bare bones here, you all. In other words, it's okay, but it's something.
Yeah, but I'll say what it is. It's accessing your intuition to give you clues as to what you really want. And a lot of times it's more metaphoric. It's based on signs and symbols. So a lot of times goal setting and visioning is a really kind of linear left brain process. Where you're just looking at numbers or you're looking at stuff, but how are you going to feel? Like, how does it feel when you've reached success? And sometimes your intuition will give you clues as to what that looks like for you that go beyond the capacity of the rational mind. So the land of plenty exercise is this 20, 30-minute guided visualization that gets you to a particular place within yourself where you're invited to see what that land of plenty looks like and to either journal or draw it out. And then find very specific ways to kind of interpret and read what that looks to you.
I got to show you something, Marisa. We got to do show and tell. Hold on. I'll be right back. Here I am.
She's going to show us her land of plenty.
I'm going to show you something. Well, this isn't, I did not create this one. I did not write this one or paint this one. This was done by a local painter. But when I saw this, I'd gone to have a facial, right? I love to do self-care with facials. And I'd gone to have a facial and I was coming out and they were doing something for charity water. They were doing like a fundraiser. And I saw this thing and I said, oh my God, I have to get it. Look at this. Whoa.
Nice.
Whoa. I'm bringing it closer so everybody can see. Okay. All
Uh-huh.
right. In my land of plenty, I have definitely, it's not exactly like this, but this is very close. It's a beautiful beach. It looks very Grecian. There's a white, like this wall, sort of white stucco wall, gorgeous blue Mediterranean. And I am sitting writing by myself with a delicious cup of coffee. And that is what I'm doing. And it is just alive and it feels so good. And there are different meanings of that for me. And the thing is, when, like you said, when it's metaphorical, and so we get to delve into what does that really mean? Does it really mean that I'm just going to ditch my business and go write children's books? I am writing children's books, by the way. Or does it mean that there's something else there? It doesn't have to be exactly, corresponding to what I saw. But
Yeah.
what is the feeling of it? And the feeling is just this beautiful, expansive creativity, which I love. And it's just, and natural, being in the natural world. I just got back from the beach with my daughter. I'm so glad we went last week because she went into labor, or well, into a situation that we had to induce labor on Tuesday and early, but we got back from the beach Thursday night. Can you imagine? Oh, my lands. But the beach for me is like that place of restoration, replenishment. So, Marisa, can I ask you, would you share one of your land of plenty images with everybody? Because I think they'd be super excited. Wouldn't y'all be super excited? Y'all comment over there. Come on, don't be internet warriors.
Well, it certainly has evolved over the years.
Right.
And which is interesting
Just
because I know I have to see if I can open one up and find one, which takes me a second because which slide deck it's in. So
well, take your time because, I was thinking about Heraclitus earlier. I know that's a weird thing to think about during our interview, but you know how Heraclitus, the philosopher, said, you never step into the same river twice? I was thinking about how I think, in a way, in a deep way, the work that you do with people, the work I do with people for sure, acknowledges that there is an evolution that is as particular as the person in front of us. There is an evolution in that business that is not going to be the exact evolution cookie cutter for everyone else. But we never step into that same river twice. We're always evolving, we're always learning, we're always growing. And how do we bring that into our business and into our land of plenty exercises where we're looking at and intuitively experiencing what the future will be? So were you able to pull one up?
I was able to find it.
Good.
So let me just.
No need for a commercial break.
I'm going to find the right window. Okay, so this is the current land of plenty. It started there, but I won't explain them both because they take some time to explain. But basically, I could see myself in this this space that had kind of like it was open. The ceiling was open, and the windows were wide open, and the light was streaming through the space. And there were these limited number of kind of pathways in and out. And it was kind of beautiful, light-filled space that I had everything that I needed. It was surrounded by
Are those trees?
Yeah, the trees on the outside. This is the sort of aerial view down below, and this is the sort of side view. And I was creating, like I was there just all by myself, and I'd be creating, and it's like my creation would turn into these birds, and some birds were just wisps that would disperse before they went anywhere, and some birds were these giant kind of birds that would fly all over the world. And for me, this was sort of about being in a place where I was in my creative cave, where I was more remote, that I didn't have a lot of people who were kind of knocking on my door all the time, who needed things from me. I could just be completely immersed in the act of creation in a beautiful setting, and then create things that could really impact the entire world, where I had kind of this beautiful, peaceful, quiet place to be with myself and be with my creations, and to kind of realize, follow the wisps in different places, but also having the capacity to just double down on whatever it is that I wanted to double down on. And the interesting thing is that I visioned this, and about 2 years later, I went to visit a friend at an Airbnb in North Carolina. And I kid you
North
not,
Carolina. That's where
yes.
I am. Good.
Well, I kid you not, my land of plenty was in that house.
Mm.
Like this exact thing where there was even a trompe l'oeil on the ceiling with the birds, and there were exactly
Woo.
8 columns, just like I had drawn here. There were 8 columns, and the
Wow.
foyer was this kind of octagon space. And then around the foyer, the house also had about this distance to the tree line. And
Mhm.
I actually ended up 2 years later in my actual land of plenty. So this is really for me what it
Gorgeous.
feels like to have that time and space to create.
That's incredible. And as you all can see, you all, it doesn't have to be, we're not creating, classical Italian masterpieces. We're just putting what we see onto a paper.
Well, I
Um,
can't draw, so that's not one of my skill
no,
sets.
I can't either.
Yeah.
I cannot draw at all. But you draw with words, and so do I. We're wordsmiths, and so that's our way to paint. It's funny because my family is artists too, a lot of artists, and I've always wanted to paint, and I've been painting some, and I like it, but I don't paint naturalistically, So I always paint from a more intuitive space. So the beauty of this land of plenty that you've shared is that then it actually manifests in your Airbnb. And where was that in North Carolina, by the way? Because, I'm in Chapel Hill.
I think it was near Raleigh.
Ooh, okay. All right. Grew up there, actually, Marisa.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say nice things about it now, but it used to be quaint. It's kind of been, you might have been outside in maybe Apex or some of the beautiful little towns, Wake Forest. There's some really gorgeous land outside of the metropolis where it's just too expensive and they haven't planned it very well. So that is incredible. Now, what can we take from that? You all think for a second. What does it mean when you spend this time with your intuition? You spend this time with your subconscious mind and let it come up to the surface. Let something arise that you've been aware of, but maybe you haven't articulated it in any way, shape, or form. And then to have that, and then to be able to manifest it in whatever amount of time, this is quite an incredible process. And something that I think is extremely valuable for our businesses and our lives. So how frequently do you personally do the land of plenty exercise?
Well, I bring Michelle into we do these quarterly accelerators in the Momentum program, which is what Barnsley's been in for 4 years.
Yeah.
And every April, she comes in to do the Land of Plenty exercise in our annual flow mapping and road mapping accelerator, where we create what we call the flow map, and the roadmap. The roadmap is what to do when in your business to get to the next stage of business growth. And the flow map is that alignment with who you are and your gifts and talents and what you want to give and receive. So we look at both ends. We look at both the practical nuts and bolts of what to do, but also that deeper level of alignment of what's right for you. And so the Land of Plenty is one of the exercises. We create a game plan on the more road mapping side, and the Land of Plenty is on the more flow mapping side. So we look at the inner momentum, the outer momentum. We kind of balance the two, because you can gain momentum following someone else's model, but you can't sustain it. So these kinds of things help with the sustaining of what it is that you really want.
Yeah. And we get to delve deeply, because if people teach a strategy without looking at the inside part, the inner momentum, then if it doesn't fit us, we're not going to keep doing it. We're just going to stop. We're not going to do it. And so it's so very important to have that inner and the outer aligned and congruent, I believe. And that's something I appreciate. Hey, you all, I want to do a bit more show and tell before we wrap this. And that is, would you look over here? I'm going to be Vanna. Let's see, how can I do this? My cat keeps knocking over my webcam. Do you see this array of beautiful binders right here? These are only some of them. Do you see these? Woo!
Mm-hmm.
These are all from Momentum from the last 4 years.
Amazing.
Yes. And
I know you're at the accelerate level, correct?
I am.
Well, at the accelerate level, I've designed a series of accelerators each quarter. They don't repeat. There's a 3-year cycle. So you don't repeat until you get to where you are in year 4. And by that time, like, the world has changed and you've changed so much that you're ready to repeat them. Yeah.
And I have to tell you all that when I came into Marisa's, here's a little testimonial. And when I came into Marisa's program, within the first, it's been 4 years now, but I tracked it. And within the first like 6 or 8 weeks, I had one of my greatest months ever. It was like 28,000.
Awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of my highest months ever. And actually, I've stayed in Accelerate because there's just one portion of my business that I'm bringing up to the next level that I want to keep. And the other stuff I'm going to let go. So I sometimes have to remind myself that I haven't failed, that I'm still in Accelerate, that I'm just focused on getting this part, right? But I have a lot of parts of work.
Well, I will say that the next level for 6-figure business owners, it's also about the community of who's around you.
Yes, it is.
And that community is so tight of, women who,
Yes.
mostly women who are in that 6 to 7 figure range, and they pull you up and expand your thinking. So it's not just the strategy as well.
Yes, because my business is a confluence of real estate and coaching and then some other work. So it's got 3 aspects to it, but there's one that the one that I really am growing, that I desire to grow, that I focus on in there. So you all, the nice thing about working with Marisa is that you will go into the program or the part of the program that is appropriate for you, whether it's the beginning level, which is the Activate, or the level of Accelerate, or the level of Amplify. Had to think about it.
And this is something that was an evolution for me. So I have been a business coach since 2011. And usually there aren't levels by your stage of business growth. So you either feel overwhelmed because everyone's more advanced, or you feel underwhelmed because you're the most successful person in the room. And then also you're getting taught the same strategies that you may not be equipped to be able to leverage yet. Or again, it might be beneath you, right? And so being able to get the right strategies at the right time and be surrounded by people who are at a similar level to you is super valuable, and coaches who specialize in that particular stage of business growth. And so that's something that I came to over time to better support people. And I think especially in the beginning stages, not a lot of people really teach what to do in the beginning stages. They bypass into more advanced stuff that is really hard to gain traction on before you've got some key pieces in place.
See, I love that you're saying that, because I really focus on the beginning stages, like the 0 to 5, that people are in their businesses, and maybe they've had a business that they've really treated like a hobby, and they've maybe only made $500 a month, and we get them up to where they're making routinely $8,000 and more a month, and just wherever they want to go with it. So that's good. For me, that's been important, and that's felt like my sweet spot. And you're more expansive in the way that you work with people, and you work with way more people than me. I love working with just a very small group and going super deep. So everyone listening, I hope you're hearing that there are so many ways you can create your business. But the important thing is you want to make sure that you connect with a coach who's going to work with you at the level where you are and give you what you need where you are, right? Because if you start going in with one of these big gurus who is teaching you all this stuff, like you said, the funnels, etc., but you don't even know what your messaging is, you're going to fail. And it's not you that failed. It's the coach that failed. So I just want to say that. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. So Marisa, as we draw to a close here, there is something that you get to give everybody. I hope your team conveyed that to everyone. And if not, we'll get it up later. But we have a freebie vault in the Bold Badass Business Show. And folks can go in and they can accept whatever gift you'd like to give. It needs to be a gift that they could, it could be an ebook, could be a course, might be live your message, whatever. And so we'll be adding something that you want to give to the group. Do you have something that you'd like to give now, or would you like to get that to us later? Either way.
I did not actually receive that from the team, so I don't know what we're sending people to. I'm so sorry.
So don't worry, because actually where we're sending them is a URL that I have, and then we'll be putting it within the vault.
Well, drop me the URL in the chat. Let me see if it's actually up there, and then I can know what it is, right?
Yes. Okay. So everybody, I'm not good at typing and talking. It is www.bit.ly free from Dr. B.
I
Okay.
couldn't understand all that.
All
Sorry.
right, there you go. It's up in the chat now.
Okay.
All
I
right.
see.
And I made it just rhyme, free from Dr. B. So it'd be really easy. So it's www.bit.ly/free from Dr. B, DRB.
Yeah,
And so
that's not
when you,
working.
well, it should be working. If it's not working, we're having power outages here in the South with a lot of storms. So I don't know. But anyway, when you go there, you'll be able to put your email in and you can go in and you can access. We have, gosh, over, I think, 115 episodes now. So you can access all sorts of gifts from incredible folks like Natalie Ledwell, Marcy Shimoff, Marisa Murgatroyd, and many more. Bob Berg, just some incredible business leaders, some of whom are highly established, some of whom are growing their reach, and you can experience and enjoy all of those gifts there. We love experiences, so we like to give you something that you can take beyond the Bold Badass Business Show. So be sure to go there and check it out, and we'll communicate with your team, Marisa, and get something up there if you'd like to have something involved. All right. And I know it would be a real benefit to everyone listening. So as we conclude this, at this moment in time, kind of, because I know you have a big heart and kind of in a heartfelt level, what would you say to the folks listening who aren't feeling like badasses, who are listening perhaps because they don't feel bold and like a badass in business? What words of encouragement would you have for them as they build their businesses and create a customer experience that people will keep coming back for?
Well, the honest truth is that when I'm feeling that way, I like to shift from me, focusing on me and my own inner state and thoughts and feelings that may or may not be supportive, to, the difference that I can make for other people. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Zig Ziglar, that you can have everything you want in life if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And I found that making that shift from how I'm feeling to how I can support and how I can serve allows me to show up regardless of what's going on for me, because my message and my work is bigger than me. So if I let it just be focused, if I was only focusing on my own kind of inner world all the time, I wouldn't do a fraction of what I do. So that ability to shift from myself to who I'm here to serve has been one of the power moves that allows me to keep going. Even when I'm after, of course, since 2011, 14 years of doing this, there are ups and there are downs and there are all arounds. There are times where I'm in my freaking mode, and there are times where I'm feeling just depleted and exhausted. There are times where my life is going great, and there's times where I feel like I'm in crisis. And that ability to say, okay, well, what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, they're important indicators, and they also are not my only guide.
Fabulous. And in the words of a lot of the transformational leadership trainings that I've been in and staffed, when in doubt, focus out, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not fun to focus on our own nose. And then we start thinking, is there a cancer on this nose? Is there skin cancer? Oh my God, something. It's much more fun to focus out on other people and how we can serve. So would you like to tell everybody really quickly what's happening in Austin? I know, so that those who may want to be part of X Factor could know about that.
Well, it's not open until next year. It's not open. Yeah, it's not a public event and it's not open.
Yes, right.
Yeah. I'm certifying people in becoming X Factor certified business consultants. Dr. Barnsley is actually in that program. So how to use all the behavioral science and experience design techniques with other businesses to kind of navigate between what the business wants to achieve and what the customers want to achieve. So I'm doing this hackathon in Austin in July, which is not open to the public, where we have these featured clients where all 50 of us will be kind of devoting ourselves to solving, the core challenges and opportunities in these businesses. So, for example, JJ Virgin and the Health Business Coalition is on that first day. So we're going to create that, customer experience, strategy blueprint. Yeah.
And are there spaces for any more business or nonprofit sponsors?
Well,
Are
we
they
do. Yeah, I'm still in conversation right now with the business and nonprofit sponsor. So technically, no one signed for those spots yet. We've signed for the first day, not the second two. So yes, if you go to liveyourmessage.com/sponsorship, you can look into that. And it is a paid sponsorship.
liveyourmessage.com/sponsorship.
That's correct.
And reach out to me so we can talk about it, because I want to talk with you about what you would want to achieve. And I want to encourage you to talk with Marisa as well. So you can reach out to me here on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the other places that we have the show. And I'll be happy to facilitate you all discussing. I just popped that up there. liveyourmessage.com/sponsorship. I'm very excited. And again, it is not open in Austin. However, I did want you all to know that this is going to be a new program. It is a new program that Marisa is rolling out. And so there may be opportunities for you to participate in the future if you're very interested in what we've talked about today. So Marisa, you've given us so many things to think about, to chew on, and to think about the alignment in our business, to think about how we're creating customer journeys that allow people to win over and over and over again, and that magnify their experience, their excitement, their motivation, and their success in their businesses and their incomes too, obviously. So I very much appreciate you coming on. Thank you, everyone, for being patient. We've had power outages, so we were just a few minutes late. Thank you for being patient. And this will be up for you to share with all your friends and colleagues. I highly suggest that you recommend they listen to this episode, because they will definitely want to know how to experienceify and give the X Factor edge to their businesses. So thank you again, Marisa. And everyone, I'll see you next week on the Bold Badass Business Show. Even if you don't feel like a badass, you absolutely are, or you would not have spent this time with us. Thanks, Marisa.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.